Good morning. I'm Tim from Plugged Into Leadership, and we are going to get started. Wow, I am super excited about this show today. I have an interview with a friend of mine, a video we recorded yesterday. It's Tea with Tim, your daily leadership shot in the arm. Here we go. All right, so we've been in this series on crucial conversations, talking specifically about how to have conversations that have high stakes, high emotions, and differing opinions. I'm excited this morning to have my friends, my companion in the Lord, my sister, here to talk to me about how to maybe have some of these conversations. So if you haven't noticed, I'm a white man. And Lesli is a black woman.
Really? You've been keeping it secret.
I have been keeping it secret. Sorry. But that leads itself to, in our culture today, to have the propensity to have some serious disagreements. And Lesli and I have disagreed with each other on some things, spiritually, socially, even within the context of our working arrangements and things that we have to do. But we've always had those conversations in a way that we've left not being angry and upset and seeing each other as the person of who we really are, to have that genuine respect. And so I've been kind of detailing the past few days some ways that we can have those conversations, and I thought it would be good to hear from Lesli about some ways that she enters into a conversation, perhaps with me or with others around the office, that allow her to leave the conversation and feel like that the tensions aren't high and that we found our mutual purpose. So Lesli, would you start by telling us maybe what you do around the church to kind of give us some context? Because I know that it's a big description and I don't want to minimize it in any way. So I'll let you.
Sure. My official job title, of course, is administrative assistant here at the church. But what that means is I actually wear many hats. I'm sort of a first face for people who come in, visitors, vendors, members, friends who come in requesting services or information. I also do a lot of marketing. I handle social media, the website, updates to that. A lot of what you see on Sunday morning as far as like what's on the screen and on the overhead, I have a little hand in that. And so, yeah.
If you're at all familiar with the church environment, you know that just about every church that functions well has a Lesli. I think every church that I've been in has a Lesli, and we admire and appreciate the people out there that do that. Lesli is a leader. She's an influencer. She brings tons of skills to her position, and so it's one of the reasons that I admire her and that I have a great respect for her. And I know coming into any position that there are going to be people that have influence, and I noticed that she was one of those right off the bat. So Lesli, can you talk for us a little bit about what do you bring to a conversation with somebody that you disagree with, whether it's me and we find a spot where we disagree, or whether it's somebody else in the church? What do you bring to that conversation to have it end well? What are the things that you enter into that conversation with?
First off, let me first say that I don't always get it right.
None of us do.
I don't always get it right. But what I try to do is try to put myself in that person's position. Even when we seem to totally be at different ends of a spectrum on an issue, is just to kind of try to see where they're coming from, and to say, okay, if this was me and this was happening to me and I was this person, whether that person is rich, poor, black, white, how would I feel in this situation? So that's the first thing. I try to truly be empathetic and just put myself in the person's situation.
And I think that that's super important for all of us to do, is when we come to a conversation, attempting to not view it from the other person's shoes, we're going to leave still planted firmly in our own position. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't always mean that the other position is right and we should adopt their view, but it should mean that we should be open to being able to hear the other person's perspective. And I'm just reminded of even a conversation that we had this morning. I mean, I think Lesli and I often have conversations. One of the things that I really appreciate about Lesli is giving me a window into her world and a window into how she grew up and how she and her experiences have shaped her. I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot here. Would you mind telling me and telling the audience that story about your dad? And just I want the audience to know that there was a feeling attached to what somebody said and what somebody looked at them. And so that is an experience that somebody brings to a conversation, and we just need to remember these types of feelings when we enter into a conversation. So just briefly tell us that story again.
Sure. My dad used to live in an area of North Carolina that had a lot of racial tension. And he can remember being in the parking lot of a grocery store one day. And he got out of his car, and there was a white woman and her young child, probably no older than 5. And the child looks at my dad and goes, "Look, Mommy, there goes a nigger." And my dad was kind of taken aback, but he said what really struck him in that moment was the mother actually smacked the child in the mouth and said, "Don't you ever say that again." And for my dad, what bothered him in that moment was the child then looked at him, and he said what he saw in the child's face was like hate and anger towards him, as if, you caused this. You made my mother hit me. And that's the feeling that he took away from that situation. And and it really bothered him. He shared that with me. Yeah.
And I think the thing that I want to highlight in that is not only that situation and how there could have been other ways to navigate that situation, but I want to point out that is part of Leslie's story and Leslie's parents' story. That influenced her dad and influenced how he raised Leslie. And if we aren't willing to listen to each other, and we aren't willing to ask those questions and hear that story that's underneath the surface, whatever it is, we're going to miss a huge part of who we're talking to. And so I think that I didn't know that story until today, and I don't think Leslie would have been willing to share that story if she didn't know that I was going to be willing to listen and hear what she actually had to say, and how that story shaped her and her family and her father, and how that can shape her life now. And I think that we, not only as Christians, need to be empathetic and understand and put ourselves in the shoes of somebody when we hear that story and not necessarily just dismiss it, but I want us to understand that when we're in these crucial conversations, high stakes, high emotions, and differing opinions, that there's a story like that underneath that we can't just move past and that we want to be able to hear. So I appreciate Leslie for stepping in and being willing to share. I always appreciate the conversations with her and everything she does here at the church. And again, please share this video. We're looking for 50 shares this week. You'll be entered into a drawing. We'll draw tomorrow morning for everybody that has shared a video for a free leadership resource. Thanks, and we'll see you tomorrow.